of types of I've been fishing since heck. The first time my mother took me fishing.
Here, you want to throw this on?
And that, I'm 76. I just turned 76 like about a month ago. And put this here.
Yeah.
And my first fishing trip was on Dykeman Street in the Hudson River, and I saw a dead guy floating in the Hudson who had just been whacked by somebody. I go, what kind of fish is that? My mother goes, it's not a fish. And I went like, ooh. I learned about the harsh realities of life as a 6-year-old, traumatized 6-year-old, seeing some dead guy floating downstream in the Hudson. So anyway, I started fishing when I was 6. What's my name? Let's do that. I'm Captain John Raguso, and I write for the Fisherman magazine. I write for boating. I write for every magazine you've ever heard of. That's a fishing magazine or a boating magazine over the last 50 years. And I run a charter boat, actually 2, and I'll, you gonna bring that down? You taping me? Yeah. Oh no. Hold on. I'll do the old, the gang stuff, no? I actually have some slides I'd like to show. So how are we going to do that? I have to give you the, here we go.
Yeah, I just need the flash drive.
Here it is.
All right, we'll plug it in.
All right. So the fact that you AV folks are taping me, I have to keep it clean. No. Because it's funny, when that's all right. I'm not intimidated. Remember that thing we talked about, the 1,000 people looking at you?
Mm-hmm, right.
I'm not intimidated.
Yeah.
But what I will say is this. Whenever we're onto a big fish, and we're whether it be a big tuna or a white marlin or a big striper or some, whatever we can catch on the South Shore or on the east end of Long Island, where I primarily fish, what I tell the folks is that when you suck on film, you suck forever. Basically, because that film is never going to go away. It's always going to pop up somewhere. And when you try to tell everyone how much of the great white hunter you might be, or going to the safari and catching the big lion, when they see the film, they'll realize that it's a fish story. That is not true. So anyway, so I guess I'll have to be on my best. So the first lesson is, what are we going to cover today? We could cover just about anything. How many people have boats? How many people's families have boats?
I have my own kayak.
You have a what?
A Hobie kayak.
A Hobie kayak. What about you young ladies? No boats for you? You have a boat? What kind of boat? A speedboat. A speedboat. So she can get to the fishing grounds fast.
And then my grandpa has a fishing boat.
Well, there you go. Your grandpa. Well, my oldest grandchild is only going to be 15 soon, so you're not quite, I think you're a little bit past 15, I would think. All right. So I don't feel that old just yet, but so we're going to cover one topic tonight. Actually, maybe a topic with a couple of sidebars. It's going to be fishing Long Island Sound for sea bass. Sea bass in the Sound. How does that sound? With a little mood, there's a mood music here. It's like wow.
Maybe a little like in the middle.
And the music will come on 3, 2, 1. All right. So one of the things I love to do, I love to teach people how to tie knots. So if I were to talk to you, what's your name?
JT.
JC?
Yeah.
Come on up here, JC. And you're next, so don't like, what? You can't hide behind the camera there, young lady. Because your father has a speedboat and your grandpa has a fishing boat. So you're going to have some semblance of knowledge here. So if I were to say, we're going to go bottom fishing now, JC. All right? So if you were going to go bottom fishing for sea bass in the Sound, hold the tag end. What kind of a bottom rig would you do, and how would you do it? And talk us through this.
I would do a weight first like this.
We could do this too with the birds. Yeah.
I would do a weight like this. Do it like this.
Now, what are we calling that?
It's for the weight.
Okay. So is that a single overhand knot, more or less?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I like that. I approve of that. Okay. So now what do we do?
And then we do the drop high-low rig.
Show me.
So
You just cut yourself a little bit short there, but you want a big piece to work with.
Maybe.
There we go. We have
Got a couple 100,000 yards there.
1,000 yards of line here. We're not going to run out. It's funny. So you guys are looking at me and saying, who the fuck is this guy? And what does he know? And why am I here? Why am I listening to this man? So I'm going to go back 50 years. Might be more than that. But so let me see, 76. So no, I graduated Fordham in 72. So let's just go back. So I'm going to go back 54 years. And I'm sitting in the back of the classroom like you two guys were. And I'm listening to Mr. Tucci. I remember this guy's name like it was yesterday. Reading from a book and facing the blackboard. And it's just like, we're seniors. We're going to be out of college. We're going into the real world in about 6 weeks. And we're listening to this guy drolling into the blackboard. And I said to myself, you know, if I was the teacher, I'd do this totally different. Here we are. Here we are 54 years later. And interestingly enough, the guy who I was talking to, this guy, his name was Bob Vinci. And we worked together at Chase Bank, which was my first job when I got out of graduate school as an MBA. He left that, we both left there and then went our own ways. This guy calls me like 8 years later. And he says, remember that time we were sitting in the back, of Keating Hall at Fordham? I go, with Mr. Tucci? He goes, yeah. He goes, remember when you said that, if you were the teacher, you'd do it different? And I said, I can distinctly recall that. He says, you want to teach at NYU? I said, like what? And I said, I'm not a PhD. He goes, we don't want PhDs. We want a street kid who grew up just north of Harlem, who went to grammar school with the nuns, who went to Fordham Prep and went to Fordham U, got his MBA from Baruch. We want that guy who's running a bank right now as the VP of this bank. That's the guy we want teaching at NYU at Stern School of Business. We don't want the freaking Mr. Tucci who reads to the blackboard. We want the guy who's going to do something like this. I said, really? I said, let me see if I know what I'm talking about. And I did that for 4 semesters, and it was cool because it was people just like you. And they say, you know what? I want what you have. I want to be you. I want to make your money. I want your job. And I'm there like, and people are throwing like darts at me, like, political darts with their questions. And it was like, wow. So it forced me to truly understand and embrace what I thought I knew at the time. Right now, if I was going to go back and teach marketing and advertising, I'd have to go back to school. Because all the stuff that I learned about direct marketing and outdoor and cable and TV and geodemographic, psychographic marketing and all that stuff that I could spout back, cost per thousand and how much, does it cost to do an ad and what's your return on investment. I could talk to the President of the United States, with certainty and explain, what we're going to do with this campaign before we even did it, based on what we had done historically, and taking out different market segments and giving this message to that one, this message to that one, and a different message to you guys, just based on who you are and what you did and where you lived and all that stuff. But now, with algorithm and all that, I think I'm a dinosaur.
We're filming for the algorithm.
Yeah, but the one thing that hasn't changed in my lifetime is how to catch sea bass in the Long Island Sound. So I'm circling back and I'm saying, well, you know, the stuff that I learned 50 years ago is the same stuff I'm doing today. And learning how you can't catch fish if your line's not in the water. You can't. So now, JC, this was a long, you know, ready? Take 6 foot. So do an arm's length. All right? Spread your arms to do a complete arm's length. Complete. There we go. And that's typically what I want to start with. Now here, we're going to do it together, you and me.
Okay.
All right? So JC had the right ticket saying, well, for the bottom side of this rig, what we want to do is I do a single overhand knot. Why? Because if this thing gets hung up in a wreck or reef or rock pile or something like that, I want this to break off. If that big tog or if a sea bass or a cod or something like that takes me, you know, as we're fishing structure, okay, and all of a sudden that rod bends over and it could be 100 feet deep. It could be, you can pull all the stuff in here. It could be 150 feet deep, it could be deeper than that, okay?
I'm just trying to see how
You don't want to lose your entire rig because you do that once or twice and that outfit is done. You know, because, so what we've done here, if you take a look, Tim, just hold that. There's a little single overhand loop that we put a sinker through. And if I lose that sinker, so what? But if that fish takes me in, I could break that and still have the fish on. Now, what do I do for, hold that. For my first rig, it's called the dropper loop. Watch this. All right. So essentially, you do a circle like that, ladies. I can do this, watch. JC, can you confirm that my eyes are closed?
Yes.
Okay, so I can actually do this rig in the dark with my eyes closed. I'm going around about 6 or 7 times. All right? And there you go. See that? So what we have is now a standoff where the hook, you'd loop that hook around the eye, and there's the first one. Then for the second one, I typically make it a little bit longer. So I'm going to use a much bigger loop. So just hold the tag end. Just a tag end. Timmy, hold the other tag end. All right. So I'm going to do the same thing where you just, it's all about, knots is all about hand position. Okay. It's not like you have to remember all the stuff. You do it by feel. And, okay, what I want to do. If you lubricate it, pull. Wow, this is a sticky line. There we go.
Yeah, nice.
So anyway, so you basically have, that's a terrible one, but I'll do it again. So let's
Does it
do.
matter how big that dropper loop is?
It does. Let me explain why that's significant. If they're too long and too close to each other, they'll wrap around each other. But what you want to have is that the fish that's closest to the bottom will be one type of fish, and the fish that's up 2 or 3 feet off the bottom, much better one, will be a different type of fish. So for example, Timmy and I were fishing the last, right after, it was a week before Thanksgiving. It was November 20th this year. We did that trip with Mike. And we weren't fishing in the Sound, but we were bottom fishing for sea bass. But what we were doing, we were following the fish as they were migrating. So let me go back one. Every fish, what's your favorite fish to eat or catch? A flounder? Okay, so a fluke, a summer flounder, let's just say. What about you?
Porgy.
Porgy, all right. Well, you know what?
You drop your line and they bite, and it's
Your time,
more gratifying.
May 1st, from May 1st to like the second week of June, that little 6-week window, Jessup's Neck and the Peconics is like porgy heaven. You can't go there and drop a line in the water and not don't be doubled up on porgies.
That's the fun part.
The rod is always bending over. So what about you?
I guess like tuna.
Tuna. Now, tuna, he's tuna man. Funness. So as you know, as you may not know, how many species of tuna do we have off of Long Island? And the answer is, what's your name?
Vincent?
Vincent.
Yeah.
Okay. I like tuna. Well, this here, see that on my hand? Hold on. All right. That's where the mako bit me in the hand. All right. So you can see that big scar right there.
Oh, yeah.
One tooth there, another one there, and that part of my finger was off.
Wow.
And crazy glue and duct tape works wonderful things, especially when you're 30 miles out with 3 guys on the boat. Only one guy speaks English, because the other 2 guys, they're all from Sweden. Okay? Sorry. So this was great. I'm going to get into your tuna in a second. So I'm giving you an extra minute to think. Where's my phone? What are the 7?
My phone's dead. So.
My phone's dead. I can't even ask Google AI how many species of tuna we have off the coast of Long Island. Anyway, so this was great. So you can see it's real. It's not make believe. So, but shake my hand. Grip. Give me the grip. Give me the death grip. I still have it. All right, because I had 2 operations on that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Oh my God. I can crush your hand. Yes. All right. So anyway, so Jonas Holmsgaard was the guy's name. This fish stories are always great, but the fish stories that are true are actually the best ones. So Jonas, he worked. Remember, I was at MBA, and I ran a bank's marketing department in the state. I ran, well, first Chase and then Manufacturers Hanover, and I ran their credit card division. So pretty interesting stuff back in the day. And Jonas worked for Young and Rubicam, who was one of our agencies. So somehow through the agency work, we ran into each other. And he was from Stockholm, and he was like, I don't know, sort of like an apprentice or whatever you would call them. You know, he had just gotten out of college in Europe, so he had come to America to learn the language better, to work with American companies, and to work for the parent company of the agency that he worked at in Stockholm. And somehow he figured out that I was that guy in the card, and he goes, "You could take me shark fishing?" I go, "I could take you shark fishing, yes." And he goes, "I will meet you." So okay, so we had made a date to meet, and a friend of mine, Skippy Eriksson, who was Norwegian. I figured the Swedes and even though they sort of don't get along, but they're right next to each other, I figured he would feel more at home on the trip, having one of his fellow countrymen, or at least that part of the world, there. And so this guy actually took the train from the city, LA. He took the LIRR to Bayshore. And it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and Skippy and I are just hanging around. And Fifth Avenue, which comes down, Clinton Avenue, which comes down to Bayshore from Montauk Highway, has got to be like 8 blocks long. And we see this guy with a ski cap and a backpack and wearing these funky socks with shorts. I go, "Skippy, I think this is our guy. What do you think?" He looks like he's from Sweden. He does. And sure enough, it takes the guy 10 minutes to walk 8 blocks. "Hello, I'm Jonas from Sweden, blah, blah, blah." So we go out there and we catch like every blue shark in the ocean on that trip. There was like 35 blue sharks that we had tagged and released. And he was the only angler. It was just him. So we had 3 fish on all the time. And once he brought one that we tagged and released, then he would take one of the other rods, and we'd put them all back. And then we're just swimming around the boat. You can always pick the one that you wanted to try to catch and angle. And so he goes, "And I will come back someday with my friends from Sweden." I said, "I'm sure." It's just like one of those things where when people says, "Oh, I love you," they make empty promises and they really don't mean it, I thought that this was one of those. Fast forward 8 years later, I get this phone call from this guy. "Hello, it's Jonas from Sweden." I go, "Well, great." And he goes, "I'm coming over. We're gonna," and this was right after 9/11. Not the best time to be flying in from Europe, right? So it was 2 weeks after 9/11, of which I was involved with because I worked down there. All right, so it was like really weird. And he says, we're coming in. We're going to stay at some flea bag motel in Bayshore. and we wanted to do 3 trips, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We wanted just shark fish every day. I'm like, okay. So we do that. So the first day was the day of the white shark. You know, it's funny how the seas were like, had to be 6 feet, and I have a 27 Phoenix, and we're out there off the Shinnecock, you know, catching a couple of blue sharks here and there. And all of a sudden I hear them jibber jabbering in Swedish. And all I can hear was like, the white shark. Because I guess in whatever language you want, the white shark, you know, Tiburon Blanco, maybe, in Espanol, but in Sweden, it's the white shark. So all of a sudden I look, and there's this fin that's about from this table to the top of your head. And the guy goes, there's 2 of them. I go, no, it's the same fish, because there was the fin, and the tail was over by you. I go, shit, that's like a 14, 15 footer. I said, we're out of here. Because you know what? Because with this guy hanging out, ain't nobody living here. Nobody is going to come up into our baits, and this guy's just going to harass us. So we pulled up, we go. Next day was the day of all fog, no wind. So now that Sunday is the moment of truth. And the guy's just saying, gee, you know, John, Cap, we came all the way from Sweden. You know, and we got, you know, 3 blue sharks, and we got, you know, a baby mako on the Saturday. You got to put us into the fish today. I'm going, okay. You know, and it's like they're calling for like some sort of a storm to come in at 5 o'clock. I go, all right, we'll go out, but we got to get our butts back by 5 o'clock back into Bayshore, because, you know, all heck's going to break loose. You know, it's going to be, we won't be able to get into the inlet because you're going to have a wind against tide thing, and it's going to be crazy. The guy says, okay. So we go out to the weather buoy. That's the one that broke off and now is in Europe somewhere because it broke off from its chain. So we go out to the weather buoy south of Fire Island and put the first bait in, and all of a sudden we're surrounded by Dorado, mahi-mahi, big ones. And it's like the end of September. The water's still 70 degrees. We're the only ones in the ocean on that because all the smart people stayed home. And we're out there, and I'm seeing this thing swimming around my boat. I go, So I take a bait and just flung it in, fish on. So 10 fish later, we got all these Dorado on the boat that the guys are going to take back to Sweden. And Jonas goes, we go for the shark now, yeah? I go, okay, we go for the shark. So I figured, well, where am I going to go? I figured, well, the bait's right here. We'll set up right here. You know, and then whichever way the wind drifts us, that's what we're going to do. And sure enough, so now around the buoy, it was the Dorado. And then there were these little bar jacks. They were about the size of this water bottle. You know, 8 or 9 inches long. And we were catching them 2 at a time. On doing that little dropper loop thing there, just like you did. Look at that. Yep, just like that. So why do you need to do a dropper loop? Because if you want to catch bar jacks under a sea buoy to catch bigger fish with it, that's how you do it. So we just took the little bits of squid that we had and flung them in the water, and you know, now we have a dozen bar jacks. So I said, okay, well, let's use a live bait. So I take my shark hook, you know, did like a rig where I didn't put it into the fish. I put it right above it and just sort of wrapped it, you know, through its nose where the hook was, you know, instead of being in the fish where it'll hurt it or make it not swim naturally. I sent the thing out, and I'm rigging the second one. And the first one starts to go off, and I go, whoa. So set the hook, give it to one of the guys, and, you know, rod's bent over. I go, whoa, this is cool. So what comes up? About a 5-foot mako, 5 feet from here to about here. You know, nice fish, female. And so, you know, you could tell. The sharks are very interesting in the sense that a female would be like a typical female. And a male shark has not 1, but 2. They call them claspers. So I guess if one doesn't work, you could use the other one. So they obviously have evolved. Okay, this is like, you know, so sharks don't get cancer, and sharks have 2 of those things. So it's like, well, okay, you know, sharks are cool, right? Everybody loves sharks. So, you know, we measure it. I write down the stuff, you know, on the tag I'm going to send to the DEC, to the National Marine Fisheries Service Apex Shark Research Program. And as I'm leaning over, I have a glove like this, and I put the glove on, and I got the wire so it won't go through my hand. And as I'm leaning over to cut the leader, the shark looks at me just like you're looking at me and goes, and went, whoa, right across the top of my hand. I'm like, ah! And at that point, I knew I was in the world of bad. The Land of Bad, that movie? I was in the land of bad. And Jonas, the only guy who could speak English amongst the three guys, says, very bad, very bad. I go, oh, shit. So his English was perfect, very bad. So I go, get my medical kit quickly. So he gets it. I go, tourniquet right above my elbow. He cranks that down. I go, get me the crazy glue. He goes, crazy glue? I go, get the freaking crazy glue out of the med kit. And he goes, crazy glue. A big bottle of crazy glue. I go, clippers. And then at that point, I'm going like, oh no. If you ever did Biology 101 and it was your hand that you were doing and I'm right-handed, so now my left hand that's shaking is trying to put the parts of my right hand back in before I glue them and wrap them up with the duct tape. So that tendon was sort of out. That part of my finger was off. I just glued it. And as long as it was dry, the crazy glue, which is also Dermabond, okay, will cinch up in 15 or 20 seconds. And then if you could wrap it, with gauze, sterile gauze, and then wrap it over with duct tape. 5 minutes later, I said, we're good. We continue to fish. And he goes, you're Viking like us. I go, I'm Viking like you, okay. So anyway, at the end of the day, so we had 3 more of these fish, and right around 2 o'clock, I was starting to lose it. Okay, whatever, I lost, blood, and I was drinking water, taking Advils, and I said, I'm going down into the cabin for like an hour. 3 o'clock, you come down, you get me, we're out of here. So the guy, Jonas, comes down, Captain John, I think we got the big fish on. We got the big fish. I go, big fish? So we go out, and one of the rods is like going off. So I go, okay, ready, set. And I just brought the lever up, rod goes off, and this Mako came out like a missile, did 6 jumps, and it took off. We started up the boat, we went after it. So I gave Jonas the rod, and at about a half hour into it, he goes, oh, I cannot do this anymore. I go, listen, I got bitten in the hand by a shark. You're gonna do this until you drop. So we caught that fish. We got home before the storm. And on my old website, I had a picture of me and him shaking hands, standing in front of this Mako that was 310, that was about 8.5 feet long. And you can see my whole hand is wrapped up in duct tape. So anyway, you need to know how to tie this knot, all right? Because you never know when you need to catch barjacks to catch Makos. So there you go. So now, here's one more question. So you might say, well, John, what kind of tackle do you use when you go sea bass fishing? So here's the first lesson. First lesson is whenever you're traveling, all right, pass it around. Whenever you're traveling, I have a pickup truck. I throw the stuff in the back of my truck. It used to be back in the day, I just threw the stuff in the back of my truck and everything gets beat up. So there is a science to traveling with tackle. And as you can see from this, I use these covers. They're called snake skins, also called rod covers. You can get them on eBay. You can get them on a lot of different tackle sites, tackledirect.com, real covers. Now, whenever I see people with a spinning rod, the problem with a spinning rod is that unlike a conventional where you cast with one arm and move it over to the other arm and then reel, you're splitting the load, the casting load and the reeling, and the load bearing arm that when you have a fish on, you're trying to hold on to the rod with the other arm. With a spinning reel, it's different. Because what happens with a spinning reel, you cast and then you hold. So the right arm or the left arm, depending on how you have it set up, is being used 100% of the time. The problem is when a reel is out of balance, you're fighting the equipment trying to keep it in harmonic balance. Look at that. This is not a magic trick. What this is the perfect rod with a perfect reel. And by doing that and holding it on one spot, it's weightless. It's like a seesaw. It's physics. You know, you're at the pivot point of the weight. Whenever you have a heavy weight and you want to pick it up, you always try to pick it up at the center of gravity. Sometimes the center of gravity is in the middle. Sometimes the center of gravity could be 25% off the center, off the physical center, but the center of gravity could be in a different place. Both are the same way. But you see, just hold one finger in front, and just put it in front of you. So there you go. Look at that. Now, the way you correctly hold the spinning reel, where's the other one? Is split grip. Look at that. 2 on one side of the stem, 2 on the other side of the stem. So you have equal strength, just grab the rod on either side. Try to pull it from me.
You got that locked in there.
It's not happening. You understand? So that's the way to hold it. I see a lot of people do this. I see them do that. I see them do this. You put it too far forward, and every time that rotor comes around, it's whacking you in the knuckles. So when you typically do a split grip like that, you're safe. Now, worst case scenario, let's just say that it's a small reel, you have a big hand, you could do a grip like that. But this grip, to me, is very unnatural. So we do a lot of spin fishing for tuna. We're casting to them, jigging, popping, doing whatever. And then when we're fighting that fish, you're putting a big load on this thing, and you have to try to keep pressure on the rod and the reel. This split grip, if you try that, you'll see. Just split your fingers around the stem. 2 on each side. No. 2 on each side. There you go. Now get a good grip on it. So that's harmonically balanced. With a conventional, it's different. So now let's do this. And promise me, oh, what's this? So this is set up and ready to go for sea bass fishing. What I typically do is, remember we had that contest in November on that last trip? So what we had was 3 charter boat captains and a professional guy who's been fishing his whole life. And we said, okay, who's going to catch the most fish? Who's going to catch the biggest fish? And we just, lay 25 cents down on the table, basically. And my statement is, I'm going to catch more fish than you're going to catch. You're going to use bait, and I'm not. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to use these jigs.
Slow pitch.
They'll look like that. So I might use a jig. What's really cool, if you take a look at my setup, this is what they call a clip. I don't know if you guys and girls have ever seen this, but it basically snaps right on like that. And it can't back out. It can't back out, you know what I'm saying? Because there's a cross beam that prevents it from backing out. So take a closer look at that. The good news about that clip, and you see I've added a swivel to that clip. So in essence, it's a poor person's snap swivel. Watch how easy it is to change a rig. So you see this has a clip there. And you'll see there's a teaser up front. Essentially, you take the lure, run it down. Look at that, how easy was that? You don't have to tie knots, and when I want to take it off, you just sort of come past that clip, the crossbar, and it's off. And that's, look at that, love it. So that's pretty cool. Well, it's really, when you're fishing and you could be fishing for hours and do nothing, then all of a sudden you got them coming because you're at a certain stage of the tide or you're in a certain spot. And here we go. You're in a certain spot. Look at that. Rocky Point Seamount, north of East Marion, and the eastern Long Island Sound. Now let me explain what a seamount is. This is a perfect example here, show and tell. This is something that comes up off the seabed floor. Watch this. It's steep on all four sides, which means that with the sound, you're not anchoring over something. You're going to drift it 9 times out of 10. Why is that? Because the sound, the water is always moving 3 to 4 to 4.5 knots one way or another. You get the wind and the current running in the same direction, and you could use 20 ounces of lead. You're not hitting the bottom until you're 100 yards downstream. That's just the way the sound is. It took me a long time saying the sound is not the ocean is not the sound. It doesn't work like that in the ocean. The ocean typically has a littoral current that runs from Montauk. It actually comes down off the Labrador. It sweeps down around Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard, past Block Island, and runs down to about Fire Island Inlet. And there's a current that runs that way, and then it just sort of dissipates once you get around Jones. It's not there anymore. It just sort of disappears. So you can have a situation where if you have an east wind and that littoral current that's running, you could drift 3 knots, okay? But you're not drifting 5 knots like you are in the sound. And with the sound, you're drifting like, you have a 6.5 hour tide. I mean, the first half hour and the last half hour, it slows down. But for those 4 or 5 hours in between, it's rolling. And, good luck trying to anchor over something. So that seamount that you see there, and others like it, are very important. Because now, when you look at that seamount, and let's look at this. So here it comes up, okay? Here's north, south, east and west, right? No matter which way you're drifting, you could drift any point of the compass. You could zero in on that seamount. You're going to go up the hill, you're going to go down the hill. You're going to go up the hill, you're going to go down the hill. Northeast wind, you're going up the hill, you're going down the hill. So whatever way that wind's blowing, doesn't matter. Because you have a piece of structure that is going to be 100% perfect to drift, no matter what. You might have wind against tide. You got to deal with that a little bit. You could deal with that by power drifting, engine up or down, tilting your engine one way or the other, using a drogue or a sea anchor, electric trolling motor. You know what I'm saying? There's 1,000 different ways to deal with that. But if Long Island Sound is defined as getting multiple 500 to 600 yard sections of bottom, you're going to drift up the mountain and down the mountain. Plum Gut is a perfect example. Okay, Orient Point is a perfect example. Rocky Point is a perfect example. The 6 Mile Reef is a perfect example. You know what I'm saying? You go right down that list. But the thing is, a drop off like you have off Mount Sinai, well, sometimes the wind and the current aren't letting you run along that. Okay. Obviously, I have the natural cure for insomnia. See, it's the non-pharmaceutical cure. That's okay. Well, I used to do that in school. I used to throw shit at people when they were falling asleep, but that's okay. It's been a long day, and I know my voice is very, very soothing, right? It's all good. But I will call on you again, so. Isn't it fun to be back in college? How many teachers do you have that are like me? They probably wouldn't let them into the school if they were a lot like me, but it makes it fun to learn, right? I know we're going to talk about knots and all this stuff, but we're talking about a lot of different things today. We're covering all the major food groups. So one of the things you see here is a teaser that I paid money for and put up ahead of this. Now, why do I use a teaser? Well, you can answer the question, young man. What do you think?
Variety, something different on a day. Also less resistance too, I feel like, opposed to maybe something.
Let's do an audio visual, and you're up next. All right? So,
Sound maybe.
okay, which one is bigger? Who's the big one?
Definitely the epoxy.
Who's big one, small one?
It goes on the bottom.
Now, I'm an illusionist. This fish is going after that fish. Oh, it's the ruse. It's the shell game that the guys did, the Baccarat guys did on my street when I was growing up. Follow the P. They did one of these things, and they have the guy, the shill, who always gets it right, and then you try and you can never get it right. Right. I'm an illusionist. I'm depicting that bigger fish is going after that little fish, and that big fish is not paying attention. So now, one of two things is going to happen. The bigger fish is going after the guy who's not paying attention, or that big fish is going to race the small fish to get the guy that he's chasing. You understand? When you just have one thing on there, it might work. But when you put 2 or 3, now you're talking. So if that's the only thing that you learned here today, and I'm hoping it's not the only thing, but if that's the only thing you learned,
What do you find the differences between having 1 versus 2 versus more?
the problem is when you're fishing over sticky structure, the more hooks you have in the water,
Probability.
the more chance you have you're going to snag it and lose 100 or 200 feet of your rig. Now, which gets us into the next question. You can sit back in the regular seat if you want to. I didn't mean to make a... Sitting in the corner now. He's going into the timeout area. That's right. JC, you're a good sport. Thank you. All right. So now, how do you attach braid to mono? You attach braid to mono. All right. How? Remember, if you suck, you suck forever. If I'm good forever. All right.
You need a uni knot, or you can do a sprout, like a barrel swivel.
You can, and now you'll see when you look at this, you'll see 2 knots. You'll see that dropper loop that we did initially, right? And then an improved clinch knot. I'm going to do that one. And once again, we could be here for hours and hours, although we don't want to be. But this is just. I used to do a thing with Marine Max. I called it the Long Island Fishing School, and during Sundays in January and February, we had every Sunday we'd have like a 3 to 4 hour thing. So it was about a 40-hour class, and in those 40 hours, you could learn a lot of different things. And every week I had someone else come in to talk. Which when I taught at NYU, I did like a sort of like what I called the marketing wheel. So when you say, well, what is marketing? What is marketing? It's making something, selling something.
Creating an illusion.
That's right. Advertising is an illusion. Okay? It's not, you're not buying the product, you're buying,
Vision.
the lifestyle that product represents. Whether it's a car, whether it's, your Fordham. Get out.
Yeah.
Who went there?
My uncle. I was supposed to go there.
I actually know the Fordham song. I can still sing it. Hail men of Fordham. I won't annoy you people by singing Fordham's fight song, but I went there for 8 years, so the prep and the university. So just Fordham. In the Bronx? Mm-hmm. Rose Hill.
Yep.
Wow. Small world out there, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right. Fordham Rams. I actually played baseball there, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. That was 4 lifetimes ago. It was like 3 generations ago, but yes, I did. All right, so let's do, how do we attach, let's attach, what do you want to attach?
We got 10 minutes guaranteed left.
10 minutes?
Guaranteed.
Let's go over the slides first. So who's clicking the slides?
I can do it.
All right, let's do it. So C-mount. Now, what do we see? What do we see? That. If you see that on your sounder, put your baits down in the water and get ready to hang on to that rod. Because as soon as that bait hits the bottom, even before it hits the bottom, you will be hooked up with 1 or 2 fish, depending on how you have your rig set up like that. And Tim, you've seen that before now, haven't you? That was on Dr. Saporito's boat. Do the second one. Oh, all right, there's my little boat. So this is a 185 Edgewater. It's on a trailer. Typically what I do two-person charters with this. Or if this young ladies like yourself, it might be 3 people can fit on it. So I do 2 or 3 person charters, and I trailer it out to Orient, and we fish out there, and it's crazy. Okay, I don't think we've had a tide where we caught less than 40 sea bass in one tide. We've had anywhere from 40 to 75 sea bass, plus all the other things, stripers and blues and weak fish and all the other things, false albacore that are out there. That's my 228 Edgewater. So when we're going out in the ocean, we're going out in that thing.
So that's where the Mako got you in that boat.
I actually had a Phoenix, which is a bigger boat than that. That's basically a 23 by 8.5. And, but you can see that is a big old boat. It's got deep gunnels. It's got deep V. It's just like that boat is meant to go out in the ocean. I've taken it out, 40, 50, 60 miles out, and it brings us back every time, and we catch fish every time. All right, next, here we go. So these are bucktails. So sea bass, among other fish, respond very, very well to bucktails. And so let's just say that instead of using this particular braid jig that I have on here, I would just take one of those bucktails, throw it on, and I'd still do like the teaser, bucktail type of combination. And what you're doing is you're just like snap jigging it off the bottom, letting it go back down, snap. So you're giving that illusion where the fish starts up about 3 feet, it floats back down, and then they typically will grab it when it's floating back down. So, but you could use these type of jigs. Next slide. There you go. So there's a box of jigs. You have jigs that range in size from, you see slow pitch, 135 gram. Here are some of the smaller ones, and these 2, boxes here. When we're fishing for sea bass, the jigs will range, if you're drifting for sea bass, the jig sizes will range from 3 ounces to maybe 7 or 8 ounces. So from, let me talk metric, probably from 80 grams to about 200 grams as far as the jig sizes. All right, so for those folks who live around here, the New York State DEC, these guys, have a wonderful artificial reef program. And inside, you have stuff that looks just like that. So they have a whole expose on the Mattatuck Reef. Now, Mattatuck, where is that? Obviously it's east of Port Jeff. Not quite Orient, but halfway between, let's just say, Port Jeff and Orient Point. So they have sunk 2 ships there. And there they are. Let's go to the next one. All right, so what's this? This is Pigeon Rip. All right, let's take a look at this. I can use this as a pointer. So as you can see, it's deep water all around, 141, 159, 185. It's deep. And Pigeon Rip comes all the way up to 73 feet. There's that seamount again that looks something just like that. And where is Pigeon Rip located? Just north of Plum Island. It's right in the ferry route. So if you ever took the ferry from Orient to New London, it's as soon as you clear Plum Island, it's like right. You'll see like 20 boats just sort of hanging out there. They're over Pigeon Rip. Next one. All right. So now this is a very clear picture. As you can see, 240. Wow. 40 fathoms. How many feet to a fathom?
1,000? 600?
6 feet. 6 feet to a fathom. Well, we're learning more things here today.
Call it Surfcaster.
When I was at Fordham, they taught me how many feet were in a fathom. The Jesuits were very, very strict. Okay.
Part of the stone your curriculum.
6 feet to a fathom. How about that?
There you go.
Learn something new every. Who are we texting today?
Summer.
There we go. I can't believe this guy. I'm so bored. I can't get out of here. Please end it soon. I'm just having fun with it. All right. Look how deep it is, huh? 40 fathom, 30 fathom, 22 fathoms. Wow, 30 fathoms, 73 feet. Top of the hill, look at that. Up the hill, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill, up the hill, down the hill. No matter which way that, but now here's the problem. The sound, the water flows east and west. Sometimes the wind goes north and south. So you're like getting jacked, trying to get that perfect drift, and it is not happening. Not on this one. Some of the other seamounts, you can do that, but this one gets a lot of traffic from the Connecticut guys. But if you take a look, there's that red, that deep red, that 1 inches of deep red there, that's the hard bottom. That's a rocky bottom. If this was mud, the telltale here would not be as deep. It would be just like a thin line. But with a hard or a rocky bottom, when you see that telltale, that double echo, is that thick, it's super hard bottom. And then obviously, these are the schools of fish that are right over the peak of that structure. So as that water is coming up from the deep and rushing up and then going back down the other side, all the bait fish are like, they're just getting, it's like a leaf in a hurricane. They're just like, you can't swim, and they're just being flipped over the top of the structure, and the big fish says, hello, boom, time to eat. So when your jig is flipping up and down that rock pile, oh, what's that? Uh-oh, elevator up. So, but you can see the science as to, you're picking out, you can look at a chart, and you say, where are the seamounts, where are the drop-offs? You could be anywhere in the world, and you could figure out where the spots the fish are just by reading the bathymetric curves in the bottom. And there they are right there in front of you. Next. So now a little bit closer to home. This is the Port Jeff Mount Sinai Reef, which is just to the east a little bit. And look at all the structure they have there. They have barges, they have rock piles, they have concrete blocks, all sorts of stuff. So that little book, you might say, well, this is great. I'm ready to go. I'm going to grab my grandfather's fishing boat, and I'm going to drag my friend over here. We're going fishing. That's right. We know how to tie the knot. We know to put the big fish behind the little fish. But where do we go? It tells you exactly where to go. They're giving you lat-long coordinates as to where to go. Like, wow. It's a big sound out there, and the fish aren't everywhere, but they're certainly localized, like I was showing you in those pictures, in those spots. This is from my sounder. So this is that Rocky Point thing again. This is, come over and look at it.
I can see from here. Yeah.
All right, this is a perfect picture. You couldn't paint this better than what it is. Look at all the fish arches. You see the arches, the inverted V's that look like this? You see them? There, there, there. So here, this is like a cloud of bait fish. And these are the bigger fish, nipping them in the tails on the bottom. Big fish eat little fish. And there it is. Like, wow. Like, where do we go? Like right there. So you need to have equipment that shows you where you're at. From a GPS standpoint, what are your lat-long coordinates? And as you can see, I strategically cut them off so you can't steal them from me. But yes. So this is telling me where I'm at, and that picture is telling me I'm right over the promised land. Now, let's study this. These fish Look at the side. Look at that fish hanging right over that. So as the water flows over this thing and comes back down, him and that guy, they're ready in ambush, ready to jump out and to grab whatever's getting floated up and down the stream. That's like far out. It's science, but it's not rocket science. And once you get a feel for it, you're like, I can do that. That ain't that hard. Let me tie my knot. Let me get myself out there, drop the bait down, and hook up and say, hello.
We got a question in the back.
Yes, sir.
How high are those bumps, like in the red?
Okay, let's take a look. So if you take a look here, see these numbers on the side? That's your depth. All right, so here, the deepest part is 70 feet right here, but it comes all the way up to like 58 feet over here, right? And those fish are 15 to 20 feet thick, thousands of them coming up off that bottom. Man, all you have to do is just go, lines down, oh, hooked up. You know, so anyway, let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah, there is, you see what we're doing? There's Rocky Point. See you out in the water.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thanks for being a good student today. All right. Drift, repeat, drift, repeat, drift, repeat, drift, repeat until the tide stops. Once I have the fish localized over that structure, I'm not drifting the whole sound. I'm drifting a couple of football fields in length. Maybe sometimes it's not even that long. When I see the fish on my screen, my baits are down. As soon as that screen is empty, reel them up, go back. Broop, broop, and you can see there's 15 drifts going on there, you know, in that particular screen. The picture's worth 1,000 words. How do you do it? That's exactly how we do it. What's that song? This is how we do it. This is how we do it. All right. And you can see, look at, there's a Christmas tree of fish there. That's the peak. Boom. And then back down the hill, back down the hill. You know, there's a string of fish over here, and then nothing. Back up, do it again. Now, based on the speed of the drift, will determine the weight of the baits that you're going to use. But what about electric trolling motors? Right. Those are great. If you're in calmer water, they work just great. You're in the ocean, perfect. When you got a knot adrift or a knot and a half of drift, they're perfect. When you have 4.5 or 5 knots of drift, que malo. It's not happening. Like, it's terrible. It's not going to work. Why? Because you're going to do everything you can to keep your boat positioned, but that water's running so hard, by the time your bait hits the bottom, it's over by 10. You think you're over it, but you're not. Anyway, thank you. Next.
I think
That's it? Yeah, it is it. Okay. Well, I mean, we could be here all night and talk about stuff. But I think let's turn it to the floor. If you had one question to ask me, what would it be?
How old were you when you caught your first tuna?
How many?
24.
We also haven't determined.
Yeah, how many species of tuna are there?
That's my question.
All right.
In the sound?
This is going to be a group answer. Name one.
Bluefin.
That's one.
Yellowfin?
2.
Big eye.
That's 3.
Elmhorn?
That's 4. Now that we have 3 smaller ones.
Atlantic bonito.
Full salad.
Full salad.
5. Dos más. Dos más pescas. Mi esposo dominicano loca. Okay. ¿De dónde usted? All right. So, tenemos 5. Dos más. It's albacore. We got it. And Allison is the elephant, but yeah.
Skipjack one?
Skipjack. We have one more. And it's got teeth and stripes. Come on. I just gave you 2 hints.
Bonito?
Yes! Sarda Atlantic bonita, also known as green bonita, also known as bonita. Yes. There we go. 7 speed and Spanish mackerel when they come inshore, and cerro mackerel, frigate mackerel. We're getting more and more of them, with the warming waters that we're getting gradually. So yeah, you guys are cool. Any other questions?
Can we tell what fish are they just by
Yes.
looking at the fish finder?
Yeah. So let me explain.
Like, yeah, like
So-
specific species, specific.
The lighter the echo, typically the smaller the fish. So you get a green echo or a blue echo, a cloud of bait. It's squid or sand eels or something. You know what I'm saying? All wives or bunker, because they're bigger now and there's more mass. The color was start to get maybe yellow. But whenever right. So when you look at this bait ball that's up there, I'm seeing 2 things. I'm seeing a bunch of green. If you get up and look close, you'll see that there's blue and green echoes in there, and there's a bunch of red echoes in there. So what that means, somebody is banging somebody else. They get the big fish eating the small fish, and it's a frenzy. So whenever you see a bait ball like that, get a bait right down to 20 or 30 feet below the deck, and jig it around down there, and who knows what's going to happen.
What about this over here? What would you say this is?
Yeah, it could just be more of these guys that are scattered about, not in a school. They're sort of like, maybe they just got run through with a school of bluefish or stripers or big sea bass, and they're just trying to regroup. You know what I'm saying? They're more scattered, just sort of out there by their lonesome. Any other questions?
Yeah. Why does the ground get lighter in color? Is it just because it can't read that far?
That's an interesting question. I think it's part of a double echo scenario. The fact that this may be in the same line as that. What I look for is a consistent density of tail. So I'll look at that bottom, and I want that hard. So when that bottom now gets to be like this, the bottom's getting softer, has less density. You know what I'm saying? So it's not going to give the same bounce back return on the echo sounder, on the transponder. That a soft bottom, a hard bottom would give. So mud or sand typically will be not quite rocky, but it'll be hard. Mud is thinner, a thin tail. Sand a little thicker, and then when you have a structure or wreck, there's a wreck in here. So flip around. Keep on. No. There we go. Wow. So we're in the Hempstead Reef. See that there? That's one of the wrecks on the Hempstead Reef. It's called the Ward's Island. And I have it marked on this guy's sounder as that. Look at that picture. Man, the fish are 30 feet deep. They're thick as fleas. It's crazy. And look, if you look real close, there's your hard bottom. You see it? And look, right there. Okay, there's your wreck. You see that little mountain? All right? That is, look at the density of the red tail. It's like that. Watch, all the way through there. And there's no way that these guys are those guys. Look at that clown of fish there. cloud of fish over here, cloud of fish there. I mean, I'm serious. As soon as you drifted over that little section, rods just went off like crazy. You know, there might have been small fish, but you can't tell. Your bottom, you know, my thing is, I'm going to put you onto fish. If they're big fish, small fish, depends on the time of the year, depends on a lot of things. There are a lot of variables that come into play. Migration, yeah, depends on a lot of things. But right there, if you're on my boat and I say drop down, as soon as that bait hits the bottom or just before it hits the bottom, your rod will be double over. And there it is. That's why. Because that's where the fish are. You put your bait over open bottom. There was a song from the 60s, Wishing, Hoping, Thinking, Praying by Dusty Springfield, right? I'm sure you may have heard that. There ain't no wishing or hoping right now. It's just shooting ducks in a pond. How many ducks do